Hello, I'm Eddie Gibbs and welcome to The King and AI, a new podcast from Anfield Index Pro, and one which, based on your interest and feedback, we hope can become something of a regular staple of your acoustic diet as the season progresses. So what is The King and AI, I hear you ask, shuddering with excitement? Well, the whole idea came about a few weeks ago when one of our podcast regulars suggested it may be worth inviting his dad onto one of our podcasts. Now in itself, and whilst we all love our dads, you'd be forgiven for thinking, nothing to see here. But when the IA Pro regular is head coach of Miami FC, Mr. Paul Dalglish, I'm sure you don't need to be Pablo Picasso to join the dots. Therefore, it's my distinct and somewhat humbled honour to welcome to the show the player, the manager, the legend, and now for the first time, the podcaster, Sir Kenny Dalglish. So firstly, how are you, Sir Kenny, and excited by this Liverpool table-topping start to the season?
Yeah, but you've terrified me, Ed, with the build-up. I don't think I'll be able to live up to that.
And listen,
I can't use the big words.
And also, if the now you're used to things being named after you, you're going to name the microphone after him. It needs to be the Sir Kenny Dalglish microphone.
No, Sir Mike.
Or you're not doing it. You're not doing it. You refuse.
Yeah. You get back in the beach. Mike and I will be okay. No, for the great start to the season. Not just the results and the fact of no lost any goals, but just the fact that they just look so complete. And we've not seen Fabinho yet, but Keita has come in and settled in right away. So as a team, and they look really comfortable together, and they look really happy with each other, which is hugely important. And the results yesterday, when Man City go to Wolves and draw, that was normally us last year, and they would win in the game that came after it for themselves. So we've done the reverse to them, and I think that's important. That if they're going to drop points, we've got to capitalise on that and take the 3 points from the game that we're playing.
Dad, can I ask you a question? Do you think, right? It's funny, isn't it? I think the amount of goodwill in the off-season towards Liverpool has been infectious, really, and contagious. And just even for me, that obviously we've been watching Liverpool for a long time and going to the games for a long time, but it's the best feeling I've ever kind of felt around the club at this moment in time. Do you feel that being in the club as well? It just seems positivity everywhere.
I think everything about the club comes for the example that Jurgen sets. I mean, he's got a good attitude to life, and he's got fantastic respect for everybody in and around the club, not just the players, but I think the people at the club who are working in other areas that he's got to deal with and deal with him. I think that he's been very, very good with them as well. So the feel-good atmosphere in and around the club is set by him, and it's fantastic to see it. And you feel really comfortable. I mean, you always feel comfortable going to Anfield anyway, but when the game's on, you feel more comfortable now than what you've done before.
What were your feelings on that one yesterday, Paul?
I just felt. I was texting the group earlier where I thought, there's just something. There's a feeling about this season that's different to any season before, and that's why I asked the question. As my dad said earlier, when Man City keep hitting the woodwork, don't get penalties. That was us. We were always the unlucky team. For years and years and years, we kind of would kind of play well and lose games or draw games. And now we've won the last two games without being at our best, but we're winning and putting points on the board. And I've spoke about it with Rosie before on the pod. It's a great habit. It's something that Man United did for years, and something your team, Dad, did when you played at Liverpool. You didn't always play well, but you found a way to win.
But I don't think we've been unlucky, Paul. I think sometimes we've just not been good enough. And I think right at this moment in time, you do feel as if this, by the way, this could really be it. I mean, every year it seems to be the same quote, but I think this one, it seems a wee bit more realistic.
Yeah, I saw you put that in the Sunday Post column that you're tipping Liverpool, but you think you've tipped them every time for the last 28 years or something.
Well, I'm going to be right once, but there definitely is a feel good. And the thing about what would have given them great confidence going into this year was the 3 times we beat Man City last year.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one, we started the game really well, but obviously Manny gets sent off, and that didn't help us. So, but before that, we looked really comfortable. And I don't think Man City particularly enjoy playing against us, because I think Jurgen's got the measure of them.
Yeah.
I think the pressing stats were off the box for that first Man City game at Anfield last year, Paul. I mean, you spoke about it at the time. It was that was almost the coming of age game, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think we ran out of gas though at the end of the game when they came back into it. But I think now what you've got is players that have played this way for a long period of time under Jurgen Klopp, and I remember speaking to my dad after the first game of the season, and the first thing you said, Dad, was they look fit. They're really, really fit. And I do think that the players now are mentally prepared to do the work for 90 minutes, because I can tell you it's phenomenal. It's not just the distance that they cover, but it's the intensity that they cover the distance at, the amount of sprints that they have to perform to do it. So I do think that it's something that the team can do for longer periods now than every season that Klopp goes on. He'll get more and more of his identity in the team.
Do you know, for me, Milner was as good as anybody we had last year. Maybe with Mo Salah, maybe he'd be an exception, but Milner was brilliant. And this year he started the same. He's been everywhere in the 3 games. He's real good professional, a real good example, and I think the 3 guys in the middle of the pitch yesterday, Keita, Wijnaldum, and Milner, were a huge difference. They made the difference, and I think now that this year we look and you step on the pitch and you seem as if you've got a really good foundation with the goalkeeper and the back 4, and they seem really settled in. You've got 2 fullbacks who are young, but 2 fullbacks who can deliver a cross into the box and cause a bit of problems. Andy whipped him in yesterday, and Trent hit the bar with a free kick, and then the 2 of them joined up for a chance late on in the game. So I think the whole thing looks really comfortable, and they 2 can only do that and allow to express themselves if somebody else is doing a bit of defensive work when they get there. And Milner falls in, Gini falls in, and Keita's a really good footballer, great feet, and looks as if he's got a wee bit of pace. And he's not under pressure to get a goal, but I'm sure if he gets a goal, that'll give him a huge lift as well.
Yeah, good to see, and it's always pleasing when a Glaswegian and a Liverpudlian are providing the fuel from the wings. I always like that, so it's a nice foundation going forward, and we'll obviously talk more.
Wait a wee minute, who's a Liverpudlian?
Mr. Alexander Arnold.
Trent. Oh, he's talking about the fullbacks.
Oh, I thought you were talking about us.
I'm a wool. I was born in Glasgow, but I'm brought up in Southport, so I'm officially a wool.
Yeah, but you're still a Scotland supporter. I know.
He's no fixed abode.
Yeah.
I was an Air Force kid, so I was dotted here, there, and everywhere. That's why my accent's such a car crash. So for this first show, we wanted to take a bit of a dive into football management, in particular Kenny's 2 stints in the Anfield hot seat. We'll also ask Paul for some of his recollections along the way. And lingering somewhere in the background, twiddling his knobs, will be our esteemed producer, Gags Tandon, who I'm sure, in his eagerness to be involved in his groundbreaking new show, won't be shy in interjecting his own wisdom whenever he feels the need to do so. So Kenny, first spell as Liverpool manager, 1985 to 1991, becoming player manager following Heysel and as a resignation of Joe Fagan. It was something of a euphoric period for the club, winning 3 league titles, one of which in your first season was the first league and FA Cup double. So when in that incredible 1986 season drew to a close, were you thinking football management, easy this?
About May.
Yeah.
Just the end of May. No, it's never easy, but it's made an awful lot easier when you've got staff that's in and around you, and I don't just mean on the football side of it. Ronnie Moran, Roy Evans were there. old Tom Saunders shared the desk in my office with myself because his wisdom, I thought I'd bring him in. And old Bob Paisley was in an office upstairs. If anybody, during the summer, we went in one day and Bob was in, and I said, Bob, why do we need to be in? It's summer. He says, somebody might phone. I said, Bob, I've got a phone in the house. I said, they can they can phone me, tell me, I don't need to be sitting here twiddling my thumbs. He says, no, you've got to be here. I says, okay. And then you've got Peter Robinson upstairs, who was the best administrator in the footballing world. He was fantastic. So there was a huge comfort blanket around about us, and all you had to do then was go on with the players and pick the team that's going to win the game more often than lose. And as I say, it's no pleasant. I knew the dressing room, and I knew what the players would be feeling if they weren't playing. But then they also knew what like I was, and they knew that what they were getting as a person, because I'd been part of that dressing room for a long time. So the management, it wasn't easy. It was as much a surprise to me as it must have been to many other people that they offered me the job. But it was a fantastic compliment to be asked. So I thought I would take a chance, and if the worst came to the worst, I'd just go back to being a player.
Now, Paul, I distinctly seem to recall the May 1986 cover of Shoot magazine, featuring a picture of the 9-year-old Paul Dalglish on that bus parade holding the FA Cup alongside your dad, who was holding the league trophy. Now, me being the same age as you, I remember well the excitement I felt, and probably for the first time in my life, just how proud I was to be one of the kids who supported Liverpool in the school playground. So being a lot closer to everything that was happening at the time, what were your memories of 1986 and that incredible double-winning season?
Well, I think my mum liked to buy Lacoste tracksuits. I think I was wearing a Lacoste tracksuit at the time. So no, I remember. So when Liverpool were playing in the FA Cup, we used to go to the games, and I remember we travelled down on the train, and I think there's a picture, Dad. Is that right? When Rush scores the third goal, where I've jumped up before it goes in. I had that much faith in it, and you can actually see me in the crowd with a white Lacoste tracksuit on. Kind of jumping up before anybody else, like a good few rows back at Wembley, and then obviously Rushy's just about to hit it. But it was. I remember going to the game and going to. It used to be, we're quite lucky really. We used to get to go to Wembley quite a lot as kids when my dad was at Liverpool, and then obviously the going to the parade on the way back. I think did we meet at Speke Airport, Dad? Would that be right? And
that would have thought so.
Yeah, and then the bus left from there. So you had a little bit of time on the bus before you actually got to people. So it was fantastic. And obviously the players were drinking, and you
sports drink, rehydration. Right, it was, Paul.
Yeah, rehydration. Yeah, no carbohydrate drink with beer in it. So, but it was brilliant because there was. All that was downstairs, and then we were upstairs. I mean, to be honest with you, we only went at the front for a couple of minutes, and the people took pictures. But I think people like to get the kids at the front to try and get a picture and experience it as a family. And that was the thing about Liverpool. There was it didn't matter who you were. There was no superstars. It was everybody that had family that wanted to bring them on the bus, brought them on the bus, and everybody enjoyed it together. It didn't matter what your role was. I mean, there was plenty of other kids on it as well. It was amazing memories that I'll never forget. And it's something now that I always try and do now. If I ever have any success, I try and get the kids on the pitch because it meant so much to me when I used to celebrate it with my dad.
I think also at that time, maybe because I'd been in the dressing room, there was a great camaraderie amongst the boys, and obviously being in part of the dressing room just the season before, we all used to go out together with the wives and have a laugh and a joke. And by the way, the football sometimes got in the way of our social life, but we got our way through it and started to play. But the people, the boys in and amongst there, and the women, I mean, Marina used to organise when they were going to Wembley for a game. She used to organise their schedule for the Friday, and then come to the game on the Saturday. And if you'd won, the wife would go, "Oh, we've won. Do we have to go out?" Because they'd been out the night before, and been bladdered. So it was a great atmosphere within the place. And a lot of the boys that played then are still in and around the club now, and it's always great to see them. So that is a huge important part of being a successful football team. And I think Man City have that. They've got a great dressing room. And I think we look as if we've got that as well now.
So let's fast forward through 1987, which was a rare barren year on the trophy front for the club, and look at what happened in 1988. Now, earlier this week, listeners should have heard me speaking to John Barnes on our Legend Lowdown show, and you would have heard some previous chats also with Peter Beardsley on the same show. Alongside John Aldridge, they formed arguably the best forward line some of us have ever seen, certainly in my lifetime, and they're probably right up there with Messrs Salah, Firmino and Mane from the current crop. Both John and Peter were quick to credit Liverpool and their methods for how easy it was for them to settle in and feel at home at the club. Kenny, looking back, how certain were you that replacing Ian Rush with Barnes, Beardsley and Aldridge was the way to go? Now, obviously, we know the result was good, but how confident were you when you signed those three guys?
No, well, we knew Rushy was gone, and we signed Aldo in January. And then when the season was finished and with an empty cupboard, we went for John Barnes and Peter, because that's what we needed. We needed people. If you're going to put Aldo up front, you need somebody to feed him. So those two could feed him. And then we started to look for somebody in the right-hand side. And about October, just after the season started, we signed Ray Houghton. And Ray Houghton was an impressive player as well. He has distribution. He played with Aldo at Oxford, so they had a great understanding. And Aldo was fundamental to us because all the lads could come out the box and pass and move and get involved in the game. And Aldo loved to score goals, so we needed somebody that could score goals, put an end to all their work, and Aldo did that prolifically. So. Sometimes you get it right, sometimes you get it wrong, but fortunately this time we got them right. And we also signed, I think Nigel Spackman had come in as well. So we spent a few quid.
Dad, can I ask a question? Did that feel more like your team, like your Liverpool team, than the double team? Because you'd obviously, as a manager, not as a player, but as a manager, did you feel more that was your team?
No, not really. Because if you're in charge of the team, it's your team. It doesn't matter where the players have come from, who signed them. You've still got to manage them. You've still got to select them, and you've got to get your decisions right more often than wrong. But if you look at the double team and look the year before, we made a few changes, but they went quiet. In October, for example, Phil Neal and Alan Kennedy left the club. So there's a guy who scored the winning goal in 2 European Cup finals, and against Man U at Wembley. And Phil Neal, who was
Phil Neal, 4 European Cups.
He's got more medals than anybody.
More medals than Man United.
Well. So we had to make
European Cups anyway.
Well, we had to make a couple of changes, and it wasn't pleasant. But then it wasn't pleasant coming home if you didn't think you'd done your best day's work. So for me, it was sad to see them go, but they had to go to bring in and freshen the club up. And then we brought in, I think Jim Beglin came in, and Stevie Nicol came in. Jan Molby started to play more often.
Steve McMahon as well.
Craig Johnson started playing. Signed Steve McMahon because his wife kept champing my door and saying, going to ask him to come home. So we did make a few changes. I never played as often as I had done in previous seasons. Paul Wall started for the first half of the season and did a fantastic job, and then get injured, and then I had to get the tracksuit off and come on and play. But we've also made a huge contribution to that season. So there were a few changes, but obviously only the one signing. I think it was just the one signing in Macca.
And Paul,
so we changed it.
But you put
quietly.
your own stamp on it within the squad really, apart from Steve McMahon, rather than bringing in players from the outside. But that was the way Liverpool was. I mean, the reserve team won the league every year as well, and you had to be a good player to get. Liverpool used to sign players and play them in the reserves for a period of time to get them used to the way Liverpool played.
So there was, we did have changes. There was changes behind the scenes as well. There was 1 or 2 wee twists in training that we hadn't done before. But as I say, everybody that was involved there made a contribution, and that's the most important thing. I mean, you hear people coming in at half time, you say, "Oh, I made a change at half time and we were better in the second half." Yeah, but you also made a right in the first half because you were crap.
Yeah.
So for me, it's no about one individual. It's about everybody, and everybody should share and enjoy it as much as each other.
You talk about the twists in training there, and when we've had Peter Beardsley on the phone before, he's always said that it was just 5-a-sides. Is that really true? Is it just 5-a-sides? And he also said that your team always had to win.
Of course. Well, Shank started that, so it just became a tradition. The manager had to win. But no, it was 5-a-sides, but they were all conditioned games. So they were done. The 5-a-side was done for a purpose, and if you never did it right, if it wasn't doing right, we would change and go and do something else.
But I used to take me in when I was younger, and I used to kick the ball against the wall and then come back. But at the end of the day, it wasn't people. It was 5-a-sides, and maybe the players didn't understand the level of detail that went into it. But I remember when you came home, Dad, with the Ronnie Moran's logbook from training, and even back, players. The best thing you can do as a manager is make the players think it's simple, even if it's not simple, because ultimately it's much easier for them to understand then, and much easier for them to feel confident and believe in it. But Liverpool wasn't just 5-a-sides. If Liverpool needed to work in finishing, they'd play to big goals. If they wanted to work on possession, they'd play to small goals. If they needed fitness, they'd make the pitch bigger. If they needed sharpness, they'd make the pitch smaller. And Ronnie Moran and the boot room would write down the day, what the weather was, the whole report in an A4 book of everything: who trained, who didn't train, what they did, and they had all the names for the different sessions. But it wasn't. They would meet and decide what the players needed on a daily basis. And
well, it wasn't a daily basis, but they kept a note of the training we did. But they would meet. I mean, that work we did was probably the same work as it was the year before.
Yeah.
So they had everything, but it's like what they do nowadays. They know everything.
But if you were tired, then they'd say, we'll do a little bit less today. They didn't need heart rate monitors to know if you were tired, or they didn't need heart rate monitors to know if you needed fitness.
No, but they'd so much experience and got so much right. But they did refer year on year to their books, and they look back and see what they'd done the year before, and it was they were ahead of their time, well ahead of their time.
Yeah, so
and people used to say, well, not more method, no, just organised. It's common sense. Really, it was common sense what they did. They kept a note of what was happening and who got treatment, who was injured, what we did, and people kept saying, well, what's the secret of Liverpool? Well, if you've got a secret, you're not going to tell anybody, are you? That's why it's a secret.
And Dad, the other part that two people can put on the same session, because people used to come and watch Liverpool train, and then people used to want to come and try and learn the secret and come and watch Liverpool train. It doesn't matter. Two people can put on the same session and get totally different results. If you can give somebody the same ingredients to make a meal, and everyone's going to make it taste different. And that, I think, the most important thing that the boot room created was a culture of hard work and a culture of commitment to every training session. I mean, I'm telling you now that the sessions were every bit as intense as your game was on the Saturday. You trained how you played, whereas that's not the case in a lot of other clubs where people kind of.
Yeah, but Paul, we weren't interested in any other clubs.
No,
we were all interested in us. What Shanks had set up all the years ago, we were getting a huge benefit from that. And everybody that's passed through the doors at Liverpool since Shanks had been there should be eternally grateful to that man, because he's the one that set it on its way. And Ronnie and Roy and old Tom, Pierre, Robert, everybody had a wee bit of Shanks in them because of what the contribution he'd made. And so for us, yeah, you could put the same session on as somebody else and get a different result. But that's why they were so good, because they got so many brilliant results.
But the point I'm trying to make is it wasn't the five-a-sides. It was the standards that they'd created of and the intensity that they demanded from training.
It was the content. It was the content of the five-a-side. Content, yeah. And it was what their verbal contributions towards the five-a-side that was hugely important. And people could come and watch, take their notes. I mean, there's loads of them came, but I think they went away scratching their head. But where they were brilliant was after the game. When I became manager, they had the boot room, and after the game, the visit managers used to come in for a drink. But I never went into the home to see the manager in the boot room at the home games. I went in away from home in a physio's room or something, just a drink, because I saw them working away from home. And by the way, they were forensic in their quest to get information from the opposition. And the first thing they'd say if we'd won, they'd walk into the opposition and go, "Well, that's just got a job for another week." Honestly, they were unbelievably, what do you call it?
Humble.
No shy, humble in the way of life. And so I thought, there's no way I'm getting into the boot room at Anfield, because I'd start laughing or something, because they pumped them for information and they never even knew. Find out who the best young players were, or who was it. Yeah. Oh, honestly, they used to, and it was like a confession box for the managers going in. They used to almost apologetic.
I'm
staying away from you too.
Paul, I always say that 1988 side was one of the best I saw in my lifetime. Not just Liverpool, of any team anywhere. We all know from your own podcast here on AI Pro how big a fan you are of Jurgen Klopp and the current Liverpool team. So how would you compare them to the 88 side that your dad managed?
Well, I think that team, the 88 team, was the best team in the country of their generation because they won. I think this Liverpool team's a great team to watch. And I think this can become a team that can be held in the same esteem as that team, but they haven't won the league yet. For all the good play and all the exciting football, we finished fourth last year. We've got to win titles. You've got to win. I know football's about entertainment and winning's not enough. You look at Man United, they finished second, but the football was not at an entertaining level. And Mourinho's not had a good summer, PR-wise. Liverpool finished fourth, but because of the style of football, we've had an amazing summer of goodwill. But to be a truly great team and to be a truly great player, you've got to win titles. And this team hasn't won titles yet. But I genuinely believe there's something different about this year, and I do think this is the year that they can do.
And Kenny, 1989-90 saw you guide Liverpool to a third league title, and remarkably, all these years on, still the last one the club has managed to win. There were always rumours in the press about a sabbatical and perhaps a quick-fire return to Liverpool, but your next move was to Blackburn Rovers, and lo and behold, you gained promotion and then went on to win the league. Incredibly, with that climax at Anfield, of course. Now, what were your recollections of that special day?
Well, it was kind of quick sentence there to gloss over for 89 to get to resigning and then to going to Blackburn. I mean, it must be 2 years, because Blackburn I went in October, didn't I? Was it 91 or 90 or something.
October 91, yeah.
Well, it's 6 months to sabbatical I had. 6 or 7 months sabbatical, some holiday. No,
you were a busy boy at
it was-
Blackburn. You were getting Mr. Walker's checkbook out, as I recall.
well, I think everybody that's ever won a trophy or everybody that's ever put a team on the pitch has spent money. The level of the money that you spend is irrelevant. The most important thing is, or two things that are really important. Obviously, you don't overspend so the club don't get in trouble financially. And somebody tells you what you've got to spend. And secondly, whatever you spend it on, you've got to make sure that you're getting a return for them on the pitch. And as long as you work within the budget that the club have, and the club aren't getting themselves in financial difficulties, then I don't think there's ever been anybody that's managed a club that's no brought somebody in. It doesn't matter how little it is. There's always money changes hand.
But the other thing, to your point, Dad, the Shearer was bought for 3.3 and sold for 15.
I know, but
Sutton was sold for a profit. So if you look at the money that was spent, as to your point, you got more back in return. So obviously the players increased in value during their time with Blackburn.
If you're going to use that as a rule of thumb, look how the transfer fees have gone up in the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
So anybody that's ever bought somebody before the last 2 or 3 years has made a profit.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them are going for millions.
Yeah.
And about 2 or 3 years ago, you'd have been lucky to get 100,000 for them. You know, the money's gone crackers. But that's why I'm saying it's no relevant the figure that you buy them for. It's relevant what they do on
what
the
they produce.
Yeah.
During the time there.
Yeah.
I remember I had a conversation with somebody who's been in football for a long time when they were in Miami for pre-season, and they were talking about a great manager, and they said it doesn't matter if you think they're worth it or not. If that's what they cost, then pay it. If that's the player that you want.
If that's what you want, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's what Liverpool have done now. I think Liverpool with Alisson and Van Dijk, they're the people that Jurgen wanted, and they've paid the money, whatever it cost. And I think you can see the benefit in the team. But that Blackburn team, Dad, I remember I think that was your biggest achievement in football. I genuinely do, because if you look at taking a team from the regardless of money spent, anything else, if you take a team from the first division at the time and you win the Premier League within a couple of years, it's absolutely phenomenal what that team achieved. Unbelievable.
And with what you were up against at the time as well.
Yeah, Man United was spending money, Liverpool was spending money, everybody was spending money. It wasn't just Blackburn.
No, but Blackburn was a fantastic achievement. And I'll tell you that I alluded to it earlier about how good the dressing room should be. That was a great dressing room as well. I would doubt very much if there's been a team that's won a few titles and not had a good dressing room, because it's really important. It's important when it's not going so well that they get together and the people in there get themselves organised and the dressing room sort itself out. Not for the manager to be able to dodge it, but for the manager to be able to trust it. And the players are strong, but they've got to be honest as well. If the dressing room's not right, then it's affecting their futures, as well as the guy who's doing the wrong in the dressing room. So for us, the dressing room for me has always been really important. There's got to be a barrier between the staff and the dressing room, but they should be as one. And I don't know. I mean, they keep saying about people at clubs having a go at directors when the club's aren't going well or whatever. But the directors, why would you want to be a director? You must be a fan. So because you're a director, and it's the same with the managers, they don't want to go home and have a bad result. Well, I never. I'm sure. I'm in the majority here. You don't want to go home and have a weekend and you worked all week for a game and then you've been rubbish and you don't get a positive result. It's the same for the manager and it's the same for the directors or the chairman. They must love that club. And when we went to Blackburn, Jack Walker loved the club. and he wanted to put some money in to see if he could move it forward. And the money was there, or they were talking about the money before I went, because they were talking about signing Stevie Archibald for Tottenham, and then they started talking about signing Zinedine Zidane, and I said, these people, they must be hallucinating. Where are they going to get the money? And then when I left Liverpool, and couple of months later, at the start of the next season, I get a phone call, would you be interested? And they came and spoke to us, and they told us, and they actually proved that they were going to have a go and spend some money, try and get out the Championship into the Premier League for it starting, or the year after. So everybody spent money, but I think the days of the people like Jack Walker at football clubs, I don't think people. I think at that time Liverpool was similar with David Moore there, who was a fantastic supporter and just bled Liverpool Football Club. But the game get too big, and David obviously had to sell it on. But I don't think there's that many places now where the people who are directors or owners of the club actually have the same affinity to that club.
Dad, was Zinedine Zidane not after you'd got to the Premier League? Because I remember him and Dugarry were two players that were looked at for Blackburn, weren't they?
But it wasn't me.
No.
But they were getting mentioned by all sorts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talking about the changes in the game then that your dad just mentioned there, Paul, you joined Liverpool yourself as a player in the youth team in 1996. So one of your dad's management colleagues, who he just mentioned there, Roy Evans, had replaced Graham Souness by this stage. How much had the club changed by then from what you had known as a kid?
Well, it's funny. It was still pretty similar, because Roy obviously shared the same ethos that my dad spoke about so glowingly earlier on, and Ronnie Moran was still there. The hardest thing for me was coming to terms with the fact I was at Liverpool, and the pressure of expectation, and maybe I felt more expectation because of what my dad's achieved there, but it took me maybe a year to feel comfortable with the pressure of expectation. I mean, you've got to think, like I grew up going to Liverpool games when I was a youth player. I loved John Barnes. He was my favourite player at Liverpool in the team at the time, and he'd come into the players' lounge and he'd say, "Hey, how many goals did you score this morning?" And I was a kid running around and saying. Then one day he'd come in with Diodora boots and give me a pair of boots, and he was. Now, fast forward, I'm playing with John Barnes. I'm playing with these people that I'd idolised, and it was surreal. It was surreal because the club now, if I'd have joined now when I was 19, when I joined Liverpool then, I wouldn't have even seen the first team because I'd have been at the academy in a different location. But now all of a sudden I'm training at the same facility as John Barnes and Robbie Fowler and players, Steve McManaman and players, and I'm eating in the same canteen as them. If somebody got injured and they'd shout you over to close out the session, or if you had to play a game, they needed a game against the first team. You're coming in on a Monday morning after you played for the A team, and they'd be saying, "Who scored? How did you do? Well done." And it was very, very hard for me to deal with, as I said, just because it's so surreal. But but it was very, very similar to what it was. What I would say was it was at the moment when all the healthy eating was coming in with the foreign influence to the Premier League. And you had Roy Evans, Ronnie Moran, that generation. And then you had, players, some players that were embracing it. And then you had players, and I love Neil Ruddock. But I remember one time Neil Ruddock comes in and he says, when they can prove pasta improves my touch, I'll start eating pasta. But until then, I mean whatever I want, right? And it was, so you had kind of the mentality of, I mean, Dad, your pre-match meal, was what when you played Friday, day before a game?
No,
a bar of chocolate.
When I was 17, when I was at Celtic, and I went full time, and my mum was giving us my pre-match meal, and I was in the house. She said, "What do you want?" I said, "Well, what have you got?" She said, "Sausage rolls." I said, "That'll do." So I got sausage rolls and beans for my pre-match, and I was running about the pitch in the afternoon. I was going, "What? What?" I was nearly coming up. We never got told, right? What to have as a pre-match meal, and then I ended up with scrambled egg and baked beans.
Well,
That was enough for
but
me.
you'd have
On
a
a
bar of
Friday
chocolate.
night, on a Friday night when we were here, Big Al lived, Big Hanson lived in the corner. He was on his own, so your ma used to put on Friday night dinner for us. Plate of soup, tomato soup, Heinz tomato soup. I'm not advertising, I'm just telling you. And then steak pie, boiled potatoes, processed peas, and then apple pie and custard. That was my Friday night dinner.
So for me, that tells you that was the biggest difference, because obviously players that played in that generation were now transitioning into kind of the new generation, and Liverpool put in the canteen, and they were making meals now, and you had the people that wanted to eat the healthy stuff and the people that wanted to keep eating what they'd always eat. And it was that was the biggest change for me, not really the on the field. I remember coming home to my dad and saying, "Hey, we did this today in pre-season." And there was a session that you used to do. It was called the envelope or something, Dad, where you had to run a certain route. And
no, the big picture,
big picture, and
you were close, Paul.
Envelope, yeah,
envelope, big picture.
Yeah. I was, yeah, but anyway, whatever it was, and then there was the other one where you had to sprint one, then jog some, then sprint two, and then jog, and a lot of the sessions that we did, that I was doing, I'd phone my dad and he said, "Yeah, we did that. That's that one. You'll do this on this day. You'll do this on that day." There was another one where you played 77 on a full-size pitch. And then you'd go onto the boards and play 77 on there. And then you were working kind of all the different areas. And that was now, if you actually, the game's kind of evolved into where it's almost gone back to what Liverpool did back then. I remember phoning my dad and saying, "Hey, Dad, the latest concepts in football are to get football fitness from football games, but changing the pitch sizes, or changing the amount of players, or changing the stipulations of the game to get whichever fitness aspect of the game that you want out of it. So you're actually playing football and making football decisions to get fitter at playing football. Whereas there was a period in football where you'd run without the ball to try and get fit. But that's not relevant football fitness. And Liverpool did that. And as my dad said, they were ahead of the time, as we discussed earlier, and it's now going back to that.
But it is relevant to run without the ball, because, I mean, many times you see teams with very, very little possession.
But you still have to make a decision.
I know, but you still need to work. You still need to work on your fitness.
Correct, but you can work on your fitness while at the same time you're making decisions. And the same time you have to have awareness. If you have to change direction, it's a totally different type of fitness to running in a straight line or running around the track with a stopwatch. And what football's going back to now is the type of sessions that I remember doing during pre-season when I was at Liverpool, that the game went away from, with sports science coming to it, and coaches looked at other sports to try and learn and improve football. And football is now going back to playing football to get better at football in some situations. Not all, but there's a lot of cutting edge research that is saying that is the best way to get fit, and the best way to get better at playing football is by playing football. And you can't train football fitness in isolation of making decisions.
Okay.
Go on.
Sounds like you've got agreement there. We're talking about.
Well, this is. I went back to earlier and I said that is the science behind it. But you don't need players to know that. The simple, you can have players think it is, the better.
Yeah, so it's
Right,
something
next.
rumbling. I just wanted one thing on the pre-match meals because
Yeah.
I was speaking to John Barnes this week and he was telling me that before away games there was
Aye.
a little detour into Toxteth for some jerk chicken before away games,
No.
and that one had me chuckling.
No, it used to get delivered.
Oh, right, he kind of implied that the coach used to run into Toxteth, and that's the vision that I had in my head.
The coach. Here, it was his mate, Charlie. Charlie used to bring it up
Oh,
for him.
the boy that was driving him around in the taxi.
Aye, in the taxis. And then...
He was a DJ, Charlie
Aye.
C.
Aye. And the Scottish boys had jock pies, meat jock pies. They used to heat us up a dozen jock pies so we could eat them on the way down in the bus.
With peas and brown sauce.
Always.
I don't think it could stretch to the peas. I think mate, the three cleaners used to cook their lunch for us. They used to put their mops in and cook his lunches.
Now that would probably be about 12 jobs within a football club. Oh,
you wouldn't get the pies, eh?
No, definitely not. Well, listeners, that seems like an ideal place to draw to a close this very first episode of the King and AI here on AI Pro. What happens here from this show going forward is genuinely up to you. We'd love to hear your comments, and if you're interested in hearing more podcasts with Kenny and Paul going forward, please do let us know. We have loads of ideas, and the overriding objective of this podcast will be to help with fundraising for the Marina Dalglish Appeal, a charity started by Kenny's wife, Paul's mum, Marina, to improve the lives of cancer patients. An admirable cause which has already achieved so much, and you can read more about that at www.marinadalglishappeal.org. That's the place to go to read more about that charity. The best way to give us your comments and feedback on this show is via Twitter. Feel free to send them to both at Anfield Index Pro and at Kenneth Dalglish. So there's the place to give your comments. Hopefully you've enjoyed listening to this podcast just as much as Gags, myself, Kenny and Paul have enjoyed making it for you. All that remains for me then is to thank Mr. Paul Dalglish. Thank you, Paul. And of course, the one and only, the great Sir Kenny Dalglish. So, Gags, we've just had the first ever podcast with King Kenny Dalglish on Anfield Index. How proud a moment is that for you as the founder of this baby?
Amazing, man. So amazing. And, it's one of those moments that you're never going to forget. I got to speak to him today, one-on-one, when I did the sound check as well for 15 minutes. And it was supposed to be a 20-second thing, but, the man that he is, you just end up talking. You just end up talking, and he's so engaging. He's one of those people that he's a legend for a reason, He's an absolutely great man as well, which is made me comfortable within seconds of talking to him, because the story goes, I might as well tell you the story, Eddie. I'm taking over now. Basically, I sound checked him and he couldn't hear me. I was talking away, he couldn't hear me. And we cancelled the call a couple of times and he couldn't hear me. I was like, what's going on? So I went and checked my settings and the mic was off. It wasn't working. So I had to quit Skype and open it again to get the connection back. Then I called him and I said, my mic wasn't working. Your setup was totally fine. And he goes, well, Gags, I'm glad one of us knows what we're doing. And I just, I'm like, I just burst out laughing. So immediately it was just like the nerves were gone that I'm talking to this legend, this idol person that I've loved, all my life, basically. It's crazy moment. I mean, it must be the same for you as well, but we then just talked about so many things about AI, pressing stats and the differences between now and then. It could have been a little mini pod on its own, Eddie.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff there. The outtakes would have been good fun. I mean, it was absolutely brilliant conversation, a really enjoyable evening, and I think he was on the phone in the end for around 2 hours to kind of put the pieces together, and the chat before and after, which was quite incredible. Now, this first episode of the King and AI, we're putting out on the free side. Everyone's going to get a chance to listen to the King Makers podcast debut.
Yeah. So pro guys, you do get priority. Don't worry. It's after 2 days we put it out on the free side. Don't worry.
Yeah. We do like to give a little bit more to our subscribers, so that's the plan there. But everyone will get to listen to this, and part 2 will follow on next week, Gags.
And it will be only for pro. Okay, so that's where the kicker comes in, folks. It's only for pro, the part 2. So if you're listening to this and you're on the free side and you're listening on the free side, there's another 45 minutes to go yet. We've cut it halfway, not very cleanly, because we didn't plan for this. We didn't think it would go an hour and a half. So there's another 45 minutes there for you. But you'll have to take advantage of the special offer on AI Pro, which is at the moment, isn't it? You only got a few days left. If they're listening to the free side now, it's nearly the end of August. We may have to extend that because of this pod. We may just have to extend that into September.
Yeah, that offer is that you can have the whole 12 months on AI Pro for a special offer price of $39.99. So that's the offer that's on, and as Gag said, we may extend that into the first week of September just to give you a chance to take advantage of that. Obviously, there is the monthly option as well, only £4.99, which has remained throughout.
And remember, it's all available on AnfieldIndex.com/join. You can also join from the app, but the special offer is not on there on the iOS app. So make sure, if you do want to take advantage of that $39.99 offer, which is basically works out to £3.33 a month. It's crazy money. We do over 30 pods as well a month, so £3.33 for 30 pods. What you're waiting for, you should buy our hands off of that annual deal. But $4.99 a month as well, if you're not looking, if you don't want to do the annual thing like Eddie just said. But yeah, AnfieldIndex.com/join.
We'll draw a close to this first ever episode now of The King and AI. The second one is in the can, and who knows, maybe there'll be a third, a fourth, a fifth, and all that. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves. Until next time, up the Reds.